something I forgot to mention in the previous part is that originally in the Southern Face Shrine, you would have had to dash into a pillar and break it to reveal the message you'd have to read. I think that's what they should have done, because, you know, it would have been even better. It would have been, I guess, good for creating the atmosphere, because, like, you break into the pillar, and then boom, there's a sudden revelation. But I like the way they did it here, too. And you got the mask mimics appearing again. And, like, the level 2 sword does double the damage of the level 1 sword. So, it's pretty useful to have. Although, the boomerang is usually better than the level 2 sword in most cases. Like, I haven't talked much about the boomerang yet. The reason that you need to... The boomerang is easily the most overpowered item ever. It is the most overpowered weapon ever. Because it one-shots so many enemies, and it's a projectile that you can throw infinitely with no consequences. And it works as a boomerang too, because it retrieves items that are far away. It's just so much better than the sword in every way, so it pretty much replaces the sword for me. Which is kind of the advantage to having swords an equipable item, I guess. But there are some enemies that you can't kill with the... There's some items that you're forced to use the sword against, so you can't use the boomerang for everything. And what is the point of having these torches here? I mean, it's not like lighting them up creates a chest or anything. And I still can't get over how stupid that plot point was. I mean, it's not necessarily stupid, it's just stupid for a Zelda game. I don't see why they should have had it so that you kill everyone in the island if you beat the final boss. Why did Link wake up the Windfish at all? Why does he want to escape the island in the first place? Does he really want to get home to his uncle that badly? Because that's something I forgot to mention. This is the same Link from A Link to the Past. So, I guess he wanted to escape the island so he could get back to his uncle. But if he wanted to stay with his uncle, then he wouldn't have gone out adventuring and found this place in the first place. I guess he went out adventuring because he got addicted to the feeling of being an adventurer. That makes me wonder what he does after this game. Because he can't stay an adventurer forever. Pretty soon he's going to deal with all of the villains that his generation has to offer. Like, that's kind of the dark implication of having heroes, because they get used to it. They get used to the thrills of being in danger and the satisfaction of doing the right thing, and then, oh, it's over, you have to go back to your normal life now. It's sort of like the whole war veteran thing. It's hard to get used to having a normal life again. And yeah, killing these guys with the bomb arrows is much faster. But I didn't get the idea to do that for some reason. This game's actually considered to be a lot easier than A Link to the Past. Now I have a hard time determining what a game's difficulty actually is, because you never know if the game is hard because you just suck, or because it's actually hard. And you never know if a game is easy because you're just really naturally skilled, or because it's just easy. But yeah, this game's apparently a lot easier than Link to the Past. And a possible reason for that is, it was made to be easier than Link to the Past, so that it would be a game that people would be more likely to stick with, and go on to play other Zelda games. Like, this was supposed to be a sort of gateway Zelda game for the top-down games. And the developers assumed that younger players would be more likely to be playing the Game Boy. And so this game, being on the Game Boy, was made to be easier. I don't really find it to be all that much easier than Link to the Past. But that's probably because I have a lot more experience with Link to the Past, so I have it memorized. I don't think it's hard at all anymore. Aside from the boss of the Tower of Hero, which goes without saying. Like, some of the boss fights of Link to the Past are really frustrating. And some of the bosses of this game are frustrating too. For me, the most frustrating part of any top-down Zelda game is the bosses. Like, the puzzles are often pretty simple. You know what to do when you see them. You use an item. They're really not usually that requiring that much thought. And that trap is very clearly clipping through that statue. I guess it's a perspective fail. It just feels unfair that you still get hit by it. And here's one of the only times in the game where the shield is actually going to be useful. Because again, you have to equip it in order to use it. You have to have it. You have to waste an item slot on the shield and hold down the shield button in order to actually use it. And because of that, they sort of made the shield better in the sense that it can block more stuff. I don't feel like that's worth it at all though. So you can block the floor tiles effortlessly, a lot more effortlessly than in Link to the Past, by just standing in the corner and having your shield up. Is that supposed to be some sort of challenge? All it does is make you sit around and wait for a while. Yeah, it was kind of a challenge for me to follow along with the guide while recording at the same time, because I didn't want to be constantly stopping. But sometimes I'd have to stop to read everything I need to, so I almost went into the wrong room. This is pretty cool though. It takes good advantage of the fact that you can stand on top of raised blocks. There doesn't really seem to be differently colored blocks though. It's just the same color of blocks, and they're raised or lowered depending on whether you have the crystal switch enabled. I guess it's a 8-bit limitations thing. In the Game Boy version of the game, well, at least when you're playing it on a Game Boy, everything is in monochrome. It's black and white. But when I was playing it on my emulator, like, there was two colors at least. Link and Marin were green, and everything else was a different color, I can't remember. And because of that, the Armo statues that were outside of the Southern Face Shrine, there are two different types of statues outside of the Southern Face Shrine. There's the ones that attack you and the ones that don't. And on my emulator, it was blatantly obvious which ones could attack you, because the ones that could attack you were green. So it kind of ruined the puzzle there. Because that's the thing, that some Game Boy games have some sort of primitive color data in them, so that when they're played on something else, like a Game Boy Color, then you can actually add some color to them. This boss can be pretty tedious, because a lot of the times you'll try to throw its ball at it, but it'll catch it instead of damaging the boss. So the boss kind of feels like based on luck whether it can be over with really quickly or be killed in a very long amount of time. You don't want to throw the ball slightly above it. You want to throw the ball when you're slightly below it. Like that. But he moves around all over the place, so it can be hard to get him in the right position that's optimal. And he of course deals touch damage, so sometimes you move so slowly you feel like you're trapped and can't avoid being hit by it. So that was pretty annoying. You get an upgrade to your power bracelet that allows you to pick up even heavier things. It also allows you to push something that you couldn't push before. Not that the game ever really openly tells you this. Yay, another side-scrolling area. Wonderful. I think if you jump on top of the Goombas, they actually get crushed. Which is a nice touch. You hold up on the ladders and then hold left, so that you'll not only progress to the left, but also stay on the ladder rather than completely falling down. Yeah, I cut past this. And again, I was playing with the GameCube controller's D-pad, so precise movement was kind of difficult. I really should have been using the analog stick instead. Like, I always use the D-pad on the GameCube controller for classic Sonic games, and it works just fine there. And this puzzle is really annoying because you've got to keep throwing it until both of the horse heads are facing upwards. I don't know who thought that was a good idea. It's just not even trial and error. It's just you constantly doing the same thing over and over again until eventually you get it right. There's no way that you can make it faster. A cool thing is that if you play the flute here, you can destroy the Pole's voices. Something that should have happened in Zelda 1. Because in Zelda 1, the instruction manual said that the Pole's voices were weak to noise. Because the Famicom controller, the NES Japanese controller, had a microphone in it that you could yell into in order to kill the Pole's voices. I bet parents love that. But they took that out of the American NES version. So a lot of kids were confused because they tried using the flute against the Pole's voices and it didn't kill them. This game sort of has a reference to that, in that now you can play the flute and kill all the Pole's voices at once, instantly. Which is pretty awesome. Yeah, this is not a very well designed puzzle. I cut past it. Yay, more Dodongos. And I don't think you can use the same glitch again. You have to kill both of them. I think a good way to cheese this is to drop a bomb in front of its mouth and then constantly jump over it using the Rock's Feather and place the bomb at its mouth exactly right afterwards. Because you can only place one bomb at a time. The flower that's on the dress of Ariel in Wind Waker is actually a hibiscus. The flower that Marin has in her hair is a hibiscus. So it's not just a flower you give to the goat lady that is that particular species. A problem I have with the graphics to this game is that there's no way to distinguish between holes that send you down into a floor below you and holes that are just holes that you respawn in the same room from. Which can get really annoying. How are you supposed to know that without the stone beak? Like, that would be an extremely unintuitive puzzle that would get a whole bunch of people stuck if they hadn't had that owl statue there. I feel like having that owl statue there is just putting a band-aid over the problem. And those things are really annoying. Like, usually you can dash attack into them, but you can't really do that for this thing. The Beamos are just as annoying as ever. I think they should have kept their design from Link to the Past, because they look really weird here. They're just as invincible as they were in Link to the Past. They're not nearly as frequent and annoying, though. And a cool thing about the boomerang in this game is that if you use it against Sparks, you can turn them into fairies. Which is probably part of the reason why you can only get the boomerang after completing the trading sequence. Although you're gonna complete the trading sequence no matter what, because it's mandatory to beat the game. And not really, like, the boomerang is not mandatory for beating the game at all. You only need to complete the trading sequence up to a certain point. This boss is pathetically easy. All you have to do is drop bombs on his eyes. That's literally it. And the floor tiles aren't a challenge either because you can just have your shield up. He disappears after a while, and don't waste bombs when he's vanished. Wait until he comes back. And then they create holes that appear, but you can easily avoid them. They're really not that much of a challenge. This is the easiest boss in the game. A cool thing is that they found a way to get into the Bottle Grotto without Bow Wow. What you do is that you dig up so much treasure that there's sprite overload, and the flowers in the swamp don't respawn. Because there's too many sprites on the screen, and so they can't spawn in the flowers in the swamp that you need Bow Wow to get past. You can also use the item that you get in Turtle's Rock to get rid of the flowers that way. So it's not like Bottle Grotto becomes completely inaccessible after you lose Bow Wow. No, you can get back into it after Bow Wow disappears. It's just that it's not until much later in the game. See you later for the next part.